In this video, we're going to follow on from our airline passengers and we're going to add some styling with Angular. However, we're going to remove the template-driven approach and we're just going to stick with our asterisk ngFor because it's much cleaner and much more easier to read. So how do we add some styles dynamically based on whether a passenger is checked in or checked out? So if they're not checked in yet, they're going to have a property of false, like we have 2 that are false and we have 3 passengers that are checked in. Now for this, I'm just going to use a simple span class. So inside of here, we're going to do span and we'll just close this off. And all we're going to do is create some styles. So for now, we're just going to call this status. So this will be the status that will display a color based on whether they are checked in or checked out. Now to actually do this properly, we will open up our Sass file. So we're actually referencing the Sass file here. So if you want to jump across into here, what we can do below is add a property called status. Now we're going to quickly write some styles. You don't have to do this. However, if you want to follow along, feel free. So all I'm going to do is a width of 10 pixels and a height of 10 pixels and a background. And I'm going to choose a red of C0392B. We're going to use display block. And we're going to use some margin just to actually display this span tag. And we'll do float left. Then we'll give it a nice border radius to make it nice and round. So we'll do 50%. And what we'll do is then, if they are checked in, we will have a class of checked-in. And we're actually going to change the background color to 2ECC and 7.1. So red will display, as you can see in my VS Code, it's already highlighted the colors for me. If they're checked in, we're going to add a class. If not, then it's going to default to red. So essentially, we're going to add a class. If you've not used Sass before, this ampersand basically means that it's on the same element. So if you've not used Sass, this is basically .status.checkedIn. So it's a chain of classes on the same element. That's all we need for now, so we'll go ahead and save this out. You can close the file, and we'll go and have a look at this in the browser really quickly, just so you can see the initial styles. So by default, we have red circles next to everybody, so nobody is checked in apparently. However, we want to dynamically add these styles with Angular, so let's go and implement this. So this is where things get interesting because there are multiple ways to do this based on your use case. We'll start with the easiest. A property binding, which is going to access the class property. So we want to add a class called checkedIn if the user is checked in. And we're going to do this via a property called passenger.checkedIn. So if this evaluates to true, this checkedIn class is then added. So let's go and check this out. So in the browser, we have green, red, green, green, red. So our classes are now being added correctly because Rose and Tina are not checked in passengers. There are also a few other ways that we can do this, and I'm actually going to copy this entire thing and give you the full source code to each of them. Depending on the approach that you want, such as this might be the best approach because we only want to add a single class name, using class.checkedIn may be a good fit. However, if we wanted to add multiple class names, we can use something called ngClass. So here we have ngClass. Again, we're using that property binding. Now, instead of this passenger.checkedIn, I'm actually going to copy this and then remove it. And we're going to pass in an object. The first property is going to be checked-in. And you can see that this is just an object key. So here we have the opening object. Here is the name of the property. So this will dynamically add a class called checkedIn if the passenger.checkedIn is true. Now you might think, why would we use this instead of another? So let's assume that we could break this onto a new line and we wanted to add another class. So we can actually add a comma and let's assume that we could do checked out and do an inverted expression. We don't actually have any styles for checked out, but what we'll do is have a look at it in the DevTools so we can see that this is actually being added. So when a passenger is not checked in, we'll have a class of checked out, and when they are checked in, we'll have a class of checked in. What we'll do again is grab the H3 just to separate these, and we'll go and check this out in the browser. So in our first list, let's go and inspect the elements. So we can see in here, we have class status and checked in. Now on the next one, we have Rose, who is red, so she is not actually checked in, and you can see that no class has been added. So this is using the first example. The second example is using ngClass. So if we look at Rose here, she will actually have a class of checked out, as you can see right here. And Stephen above will have a class of checked in. So this is basically a way that we can add multiple classes or set up the ability to have multiple classes on a particular element.